Welcome back to another episode of Barn Table Talks. I'm your host, Travis Corman, co-host Andrew Fansler, and today we're joined by Don Lamb. Don is a farmer from Boone County.
Yep.
Right? And then we're going to expand a little more on that.
Yep.
Right? Because there is more behind you. There's more behind you than that.
Yeah.
But, so normally what we do here, Don, we've been conversing a little bit before the episode here, but we don't like to just start with interview. We don't want that to be this. So we have a question we didn't tell you about. Andrew's got it over there for you.
Right. Well, first off, Don, thanks for coming. We appreciate having you. And I like to ask just a random question. And today's question is, if you could pick between IndyCar and NASCAR, what would it be?
IndyCar.
What track would you run if you could drive an IndyCar?
Oh, Indy. Yeah. I mean, it's just, I have to go with that just because it's really the only race I've ever seen anyway, and I love it. So,
do you go?
Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah, I get to go.
Yeah. Have you been? Is that like been since
I've had
kid?
some.
Like
I've had I've had some family that have had tickets for a long time, and I usually can tag along with them. And then in my current role,
I've never been to that experience.
Yeah,
like, I mean, as close as we are, it's thinking like, oh, everybody's got to go in Indiana. But
well, and it's really changed. It's gotten so much better over the years. It used to be just such a huge party, but now, very classy, very patriotic, and it is a special day. So no doubt, that's an easy question. I love NASCAR too, but I just have never. I did come to the Brickyard back when it first started here, and I kind of got into it then. But boy, the Indy experience is nothing to beat it. Yep.
Travis, what would you drive? Would you be in the IndyCar?
See, I like the ability of the NASCAR to be able to bump and around a little bit. Like I like to get in there, and I think I'd probably do a little more shoving around.
Right.
Probably the speed, the excitement. I think the thrill and the worldwideness of the IndyCar is what attraction is. Right. I mean, you're everywhere.
Yeah.
But I think NASCAR is probably more my style of driving.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is what it would be. But
yeah.
But I do think that I agree with you on the Indy race. The nostalgia of it, and like just there's certain pieces that everybody grabs a hold of.
Yeah. Right.
And my wife, she loves the opening ceremonies.
Oh yeah.
And the back home again in Indiana, like those things that you just hope they never take out of it. And they do a really good job of paying tribute to,
the military,
all the military and everybody that's served and stuff like that, which is always really humbling and kind of.
Yep.
And I don't know, but I wonder how long Purdue's marching band. It's
been a long time. We talked about that this year, wondering about the same question. And I'm not sure how long, but yeah.
The gentleman that sang the Back Home Again in Indiana, I forget his name.
I don't remember.
But he did a really good job.
Oh, yeah.
He sounded just like, the guy that did it for years. Jim Neighbors. Thank you. Jim Neighbors, yes. Yep. Yeah, he sounded very similar to Jim and did a very good job.
And he's singing it for maybe 4 years now, I think.
But they did a good job.
Did a great job.
So...
Well,
what about you?
I'm definitely, it's Indy. It's Indy all the way. I've actually wanted to do the IndyCar racing experience for years and, hoping maybe this October I'm going to get an opportunity to actually try it. So,
Is that where they just put you in a two-seat?
Yeah, put you in a two-seater, get to go around the track.
I've done that. Yeah. 180 mile an hour is what they get up to. And when you go into the corners, the thing I can tell you it feels like is a roller coaster. When the roller coaster slams you into the side of the box while you're going around the curve, that's when you go into the corners at 180, that's what it feels like, is you kind of get slammed to the side.
So how exhausting is it if you was to do it?
I took 2 laps and I was worn out, and I was halfway sick just from feeling feeling almost dizzy.
Because you think the G's were just holding you down. Right?
Yeah. So it's a great experience, but
physical. It's impressive.
I cannot imagine holding a steering wheel around a corner,
that long, that many laps.
Oh, it's just what they do physically is incredible. So
earlier in the month of May, I was at dinner with some friends one night at a place in Indy, and Scott Dixon and Dario Franchitti were sitting next to us, and it was kind of surprising to me. They're both really little guys, right? And you think how good a physical shape they would have to be in to hang onto that wheel. And just the reaction times of everything that they've got going out there, when they're running, it's just unbelievable.
Yep.
Unbelievable. So, well, Don, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about your family, your upbringing, background.
Yeah. Well, I can start out, when you just say that, the first thing that comes to my mind is I'm probably one of the most fortunate people in the world. I have had just a really, really great life, and it's mostly because I've had a great family and a great upbringing. Very proud of my dad. My dad's a first-generation farmer, grew up in Indianapolis, went to Butler and studied business, went in the military, rented his first farm through the mail, actually, when he was still in Italy. So, some
part of the 173rd was in the Army?
He was in the Air Force.
He was in the Air Force.
He was at Aviano.
Stationed out of there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, kind of wanted to always thought he liked farming, had never done it. So, basically the bottom line is somebody took a chance on him. I can't imagine renting my farm to somebody that
by mail,
and from Italy, and you've never farmed before, no? And so and that first experience was good, but he moved on from that, went to another farm up in Tipton, Indiana. I was there for a couple of years, and again a good experience, but moved on from that and ended up in Boone County where we are now. And so just very, very proud of my dad because he chased a dream, and it was hard to do, but he did it. And then my brother and I have reaped the benefits of that. And now there's another generation on the farm. So as far as the farming part goes, that's what I've done my whole life. It's what I love. I love agriculture and I love farming. Then about 2.5 years ago now or so, got a phone call that said, would you consider being the director of agriculture in the state? And that was an interesting concept for me at that moment.
Did you know what that entailed?
Yeah, well, a little bit. I'd been just involved enough to understand what that meant. It meant a full-time job. It means I leave the farm, and my first thought was, no, I can't do that because how would I do that? I can't farm and do that. Well, when I talked to my brother about it, my brother, is probably my best friend and business partner for my whole life, and when I said that to him, what about this? He said, well, that would force us to do some things that we need to do anyway.
Right.
In terms of we've got a next generation coming on, and farmers in general are not normally the best.
They don't like to release management.
Yeah.
They don't like to release decisions.
Yeah. So when he said those words, it really kind of opened up the possibility to me, and it really has worked out well that way. I've really been able to step away from the farm for these last 2.5 years and do some different things. And it's interesting. I really feel like my brother and I still have I talk to him on the way here for probably 35 minutes of my drive. I talk to him every day and kind of keep up with what's happening on the farm, but he's doing it. He and his boys, he's got 2 sons that are heavily involved, and so they're doing it, and they're getting along great.
Are you enjoying seeing the success?
Oh yeah.
That? I mean, that's kind of a successful start of a transition.
Yeah. It's really good, and he's exactly right. We're not the best at doing that naturally. We kind of sometimes need a little shove, and someday, this is not my forever life. Someday I'd like to be back on the farm one way or another, but I won't. It'll never be the same.
Right.
I'll never come back like it was when I left.
Right.
Because people have there, and which is good because that means, well, what else could we do? What other aspect of the farm could I be involved in, or maybe it's even a little different part of another expansion of some sort. But it's really it's been great to see the farm do what it does. And I mean it's humbling too because you realize they really didn't need me. I guess
right.
So which is
a little
good.
Slap in the face.
We're all replaceable.
But so. And that is something that a lot of times you have to have a point in your life that it's that humbling.
Yeah.
You were trained, you were educated, you were whatever.
Right.
You are replaceable. And the more people realize that in life, I think actually the better off they are.
Right.
To some extent and stuff like that. So that's not that you don't ever sound like you're you're worthless. That's not the same.
Right.
Right.
It's
Well, and probably the different view that the youth brings into the leadership role is probably a game changer.
Yeah. No.
How old, when we say youth, how old are they?
No, now the boys are maybe 31 and 28. So
okay,
they really
got great opportunity for their age.
Oh yeah,
that's really good.
They're doing real well.
But when you look back at what you and your brother have been able to help move the needle on, how old were you? How old were your brother when you felt like you kind of started in on some leadership roles?
Well, we were like most kids from that era. We started doing, driving tractors at 10 years old.
Yeah.
And the thing I always joke that wasn't sure my dad really actually loved us when I look back, and I'm sure glad that the Department of Child Services didn't see what all happened at our farm, because I think back to the things that we were able to do as kids, and it was really crazy. We Saturdays were cleaning hog lots and grinding feed and taking hay to the sale barn, and that was just the way we grew up. doing things that you most likely today wouldn't let a kid do.
Right.
We lived around PTO shafts, and so we had a lot of things that we got to do, but that taught you so much at a young age, and that's really what instilled that love. I never had any doubt that I was going to farm. That's just what I wanted to do. We did go. Dean and I both went to Purdue. Both of us are ag econ majors, so we did live away from home for a little bit. Then did that, and that was a great experience. But we both knew we wanted to come back to farm, and it just so happened when we came back, we really had a couple different opportunities that kind of landed in our lap, really in that first year or two, where we were able to make some pretty significant expansion in acres, and at that time, there's just nothing better. It's like we didn't want to sleep, we could just farm more, and that's what because that's what we love to do. So that's kind of the environment we grew up in, and it's different now. Our kids grew up in a different environment, not necessarily because the farm was established or the size of it, but partly just because the culture is different now. Right. And the equipment, you're not driving a 1960, 1800 Oliver like I did. You're driving a piece of equipment that costs $300,000 and is driven by a computer. Right. And so you don't just put the 12-year-old in it. And so, unfortunately, that's a thing that I think we're missing in this next generation is they didn't have some of those hardcore experiences that we had when we were kids.
Not enough 806s or 1800s or any of that stuff out there anymore. Yep. So when you look back to that, I guess, what did you like the most about, growing up on the farm? I'm going to say, becoming a leader of the farm at a young age. I mean, when you look back, what did you like the most about that?
I think it was just probably the challenge of it, and just it was exciting. It's just it truly is right. If you get a job that you love, you never work a day in your life type thing. And I've never, farming has always been just fun to me, and so fun and exciting. And the challenge of it. And then it always gets back to people. I always say that it's always about people. It's always about relationships. That's why my brother and I are close. That's, my dad is 87 still on the farm and today. And if we could spend the day today together, it'd be one of the best days we could have just because we enjoy just talking about, and so much of it is, watching something grow from something small to something larger. And being a part of that.
One step previous, did your dad did he farm prior to the service?
No.
Or what pulled his interest into farming?
No, it's very interesting. He grew up, his younger years were just south of the state fairgrounds there in that area, about on College Avenue. And then when he was in high school, he moved out to Pike Township, which, Pike Township schools, now it's a huge area, but at that time it was a little bit more of the suburban school at least. Mm-hmm. And he had a friend whose dad milked cows. And he spent a little bit of time in that milking barn when he was in high school, and just kind of fell in love with the idea of farming.
Gotcha.
As a really a city boy.
Because that's kind of an out of the ordinary thing for someone to be able to come in, and understand all of everything that's involved with that.
Yeah. So it was just a thought. And the thing that's really neat for me, a quick side note is. The Normandy barn that's at the state fairgrounds on the north side of the state fairgrounds, if you're familiar with that, was moved in there. Mm-hmm. And we do all of our meetings. The Department of Agriculture does a lot of meetings in the Normandy barn during the state fair. That's just kind of something we do. But that is the barn that my dad
isn't that neat?
First milk cows in.
No kidding.
Oh, wow. When he was moved in off of Marsh Road there in Pike Township. And so he and I have got a good picture in front of that barn, and that'll be one of those. I can't hardly think about it without getting tears in my eyes when I think about that was the start of my dad's love for agriculture, and now I get to be in that barn.
Yeah, look where that led you. That's neat.
Yeah, it really is. It's a cool story. But I'm very proud of my dad.
And Don, you've heard me say this before. I go back. This has been probably 23, 24 years ago. Being a first generation farmer, looking at buying my first combine. A buddy of mine had been harvesting together, and I go find this combine on a lot, a competitor's lot. And the guy tells me the combine came from Bob Lamb. And so, I had very little money, no room for repairs. And so I'm thinking, I'm going to find this Bob Lamb, and I'm going to go find out what's wrong with this combine. And I was fortunate enough to find you where your farm was, find your dad. And not only did he want to engage with me on the combine, I remember I probably sat in an office there for probably 2.5 hours with him that day, listened to his story, and he gave me so much encouragement with my side to say, if you want it, go for it. You know, don't be held back. Don't let people push you around. And if you want it, just make it happen. And it's funny how the world goes full circle, but I look back to that conversation that day and I'm like, hey, if this guy did it, I'm going to figure out how to do it myself, right? So it's just a little inspiration there. So
good.
So your current role then,
Yep.
the Director of Agriculture, State of Indiana.
Yep.
What is that? What role? What do they do?
Well, the biggest thing the word that always comes to mind is advocate. You know, when I think about my role, I'm an advocate for agriculture. That's what I get to do, which is super easy because
you understand
I understand it and I love it. So if you tell me that I want to promote something I love, it's kind of like saying, hey, you know, go promote your family. You know, I love.
Go talk about grandkids. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And so
for most people,
and so it's not, and it is a lot more than that. But really, we have the FFA is part of our department. We have soil conservation as part of our department. We have economic development, which includes international trade down to the Indiana Grown programs, so everything from local food to, you know, we're the 7th largest ag exporter in the country as a state, which is pretty cool considering we're the 38th largest state in size, but we're the 7th largest ag exporter. So, you know, that's a big part of what we do. And then we also have our public policy part. So we keep track of legislation that's going on at the State House. So we follow that real closely. And then we've got the Grain Indemnity Fund where we really help make sure that farmers have a backstop if there's a failure, an economic failure of a grain elevator. So that's part of what we do as well.
Gotcha.
So go back 5 years ago. Would you have ever seen yourself in this role?
No, not really. Except I will tell you, I do think God gives you little glimpses of things sometimes. It's just funny. You don't know what that is, and maybe it. You know, I think back to your comment about conversation with my dad. You can remember that moment, and it kind of painted a little bit of a picture maybe for you. And I was fortunate enough. I graduated Purdue in '89. You know, worked hard farming. Got married in the early '90s. We were part of the Indiana Farm Bureau Young Farmer program, so we were one of those families. So my wife was a city girl, and that was her introduction to agriculture. Well, you think, you know, 2005 is when the first time we established the Department of Agriculture in Indiana. Mitch Daniels established that Department of Ag, which was, so you think about where I was in life right at that point. I'd had some leadership experience. I was involved in agriculture. I loved it. And that was a time when you really, okay, agriculture is important to our state. We need a Department of Agriculture. And it was kind of a pride moment for agriculture.
Right.
And I was probably at the right age and doing the things that I really engaged with that process at that point. Not that I was involved in it at all, but just the idea that Indiana as a state needs a Department of Agriculture, or we need to be elevated. We do a lot of things in our state. And so, you know, again, that's when I look back to that time. So to say I could never see myself in that position would be a lie, because I, you know, to me, this is almost like the ultimate position I could have ever seen myself in. And I could see it, but did I ever really think it would happen? No. Right. I mean, it wasn't something I dreamed for or longed for. It was just something that when that opportunity came up, it was like one of those wow moments, like, oh my.
You probably felt honored to be able to represent the state of Indiana and agriculture.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
The Department of Ag does so much, as you said, and, you know, but the economic development piece just comes to my mind. You look at what you've been able to do for farmers. I mean, you know, the poet that was built in Shelbyville, Shelby County, you know, Department of Ag, you know, helped promote that, help that happen.
I guess that kind of what was prior to 05 then. How did the management process of ag within the state, did they just follow the federal guidelines?
There was a I don't know exactly what the title of it was. I probably should, but it was in the Department of Commerce.
Okay.
So agriculture was represented in the Department of Commerce.
Just slightly different, not as its own entity.
Yeah, it had its own division of the Department of Commerce, and you know, Joe Pearson led that for a long time. So Harry Pearson was president.
I was just talking to Andrew before this started, and I had the opportunity to go work with Joe's grandson.
Yeah.
And Joe was there.
Yeah.
And he's talking about this old, I think it's a Lincoln Town Car or something like that, right? Yeah. And he's working on it, and he said, I got 600,000 miles on this thing. I said, man, you do more driving than I do.
Yeah. Well,
and he told me about his current old position and stuff like that. And like, man, it's just fascinating. I'd love to sit down and just go to dinner with this guy because it's just so neat.
Well, and there, you think about his family. Harry Pearson was president of Farm Bureau.
Gotcha.
His brother, and Joe was the head of the Department of Ag, whatever that was called at that moment. And he for years he was a really, really strong leader. And you think of those two brothers, how much influence they had, because Harry Pearson, when I told you I was in the Young Farmer program, he was the president of Farm Bureau at that time. That was before Don Billwalk, and Harry was an Oliver tractor lover and a Sunday school teacher, and a nationwide leader in agriculture. I mean, you look at somebody like that and you think, man, I want to be like that. Right. I want to be a solid man of integrity like that, who loves the roots of agriculture. And yet can lead on a nationwide scale.
And what a difference make.
Yeah, and Joe, I think, was the same way.
That's fun. That's interesting because this small world.
Yeah,
small world.
Yeah.
So is there something, from what you've seen, your career, your current position, what do you see in the future of ag in Indiana?
Yeah.
Is there anything that you're longing for? What are your thoughts there?
Well, it truly is a positive outlook, and it's a positive story about where agriculture is going in Indiana. And I think so many times, I don't know how many times you were probably told you couldn't start farming from scratch.
Almost daily.
Don't even try. It's too expensive.
Yes.
It's too capital intensive. It's just too hard to do it unless you're and unfortunately, I'm the second generation, so I'm a guy that I didn't do it myself, but I did. I know the story of how my dad did it. And for a long time I thought, yeah, my dad did it in an era where it probably was easier. And now, you probably can't do it. Well, that's not true. Mm-hmm. There's lots of opportunities. And I think there's actually more opportunities today than there was even when you started.
I agree.
And it's because people have gotten creative about niches.
Yes.
People have gotten creative about what they can sell and what they can do. And if you're willing to work hard, I think about Mike Keeney is a guy here in this Shelbyville area who is on the Indiana Soybean Board, has been the president of that. He's a first generation farmer. And I from talking to him and see what he does, he did drainage work. He still does drainage work,
right.
but he trucked cattle. He had some trucks and trucked cattle and did drainage work, and he worked his tail off, and then slowly built up and now he is a true grain farmer.
Right.
And so he's done the thing that people say you can't do. You've done it. And I think today there's just opportunities. When I look at the Indiana Grown program and the people that are able to do things on maybe a small scale, but boy, there's opportunities to build those. And we're helping people that are making a product in their backyard in Indiana actually export things, to foreign countries. And
tell us a little bit about that real quick, because that's a topic I didn't even think about before. But it is a huge opportunity. Indiana Grown program.
Yeah. Well, I'll throw one quick example. Two ladies up in northern Indiana started a soccer fundraising effort where they made some peanut butter to sell to raise funds for their son's soccer teams. Made it in their garage.
Okay.
And today it's called Bee Nutty, and there's probably
I've heard of Bee Nutty.
Bee Nutty's a big. I said peanut butter, right?
Yes.
Okay, I got my stories right.
Yeah.
So big peanut butter company. And they've got, 80 employees now. They've got 3 different locations. And then there's a group called Food Export Midwest that we work with. And it's where some of the federal dollars for funding of exports go is to more of a regional area.
Yeah.
And we get to work with Food Export Midwest, great people in Chicago. And they've got people that will work in a region and say, okay, out of the products that we're producing in this area, who can export? And they started out with Bee Nutty, and I don't know how many countries Bee Nutty sells into now.
Interesting.
But in an 11-year period, these 2 ladies selling peanut butter out of their garage are in a worldwide market now, selling peanut butter and being very, very successful.
Unreal.
And so, but things like that can happen. Now, do you consider that agriculture? I do, because they're using agricultural products and it's food. And so they wish we could grow peanuts in Indiana, so it could be, but they try to source most of their other ingredients as much as they can. They'll try to source from Indiana, but it's just things like that you put together. So many stories of Indiana grown companies that are involved in agriculture one way or another, and they're making a difference, and they've got a future.
So if we had a listener out there that wanted to look that up. I mean, just like Indiana grown, if they just Google that, it'll come up with, talk a little bit about the entity, talk about some of the success stories. That to me is awesome.
Well, the tying thing that I see on all these success stories, including yours, Don, as well as some people say things fall into people's laps.
Mm-hmm.
Opportunity is often dressed in overalls and leather gloves.
Oh, yeah.
And you got to be willing to work for it. And that's what, it sounds like these two ladies have done, saying, hey, you got an opportunity, and you don't really know where the limit's at that point if you just keep going. Same thing with Andrew, pushing in. That's some people think it's just handed to people. Well,
if you're not willing to work, don't start. And that's where that love comes in. It really almost has to be something about that too. It's the passion. If you don't have the passion for it, don't do it. You don't force it. You can't just wish a thing a certain way. You have to have the desire to do it. So have the desire, be willing to work. That's what it's going to take.
So following along that same kind of trend, anything new for Indiana agribusiness? I mean, are there any agribusiness stuff that we can talk about that maybe the state of Indiana is trying to go after?
Oh man, I could, from top to bottom, there's so much going on. So many good things going on. And when you think about Indiana, we've got such a great thing that Corteva is here.
Yes.
And we got such a great thing that Elanco is here.
Yep.
Such a great thing that Beck's Hybrids is here. And you look at those three businesses alone, and I could mention so many other things, but when I think about what they do, let's just compare Corteva and Beck's. Both of them are really big companies.
Yes.
And yet so different. So Corteva, is playing on this worldwide scale, and they offer products all over the world, and so much technology. So many opportunities for people. If you want a good job in agriculture, you can work for Corteva, and it's a great place to be. And then you think like Beck's Hybrids, and I just look at the family atmosphere that the Beck family has created there, and now they're in I don't know how many states. I can tell you several states, 9 or 10 states or more, and just such a family success story. And the feel that they've created around the culture of their company is second to none. So when you say opportunities in Indiana, we've got the quote unquote big opportunities from companies like that, still with a feel of a family feel. I mean, you can be proud to work for those companies. Doing what they're doing is good work. And so you've got that. And then like we've talked about with the Indiana Grown program, there's about almost 2,000 members of Indiana Grown now. And the thing I would say about Indiana Grown too is we're trying to develop the culture that I'm a corn and soybean farmer and wheat. We grow some popcorn, we grow some waxy corn and some specialty things like that. But we're an Indiana Grown member. You don't have to be selling your product to a customer here locally. You can be selling into that quote unquote commodity market. Mm-hmm. But why not be proud of that still being an Indiana grown product? Soybeans and corn are Indiana grown products. The amount of economic development that's done in a local community because of a corn and soybean farmer turns over like 7 times in a community. So you can be proud of the fact that you're growing this commodity product, and some people would look at it as big ag. Some people would look at that as the big stuff. Well, yes, but it's also part of your local community in a really strong way. And then the opportunities with whether it's, I don't care, honey, peanut butter, a creamery making butter and cheese, all sorts of opportunities like that in the Indiana Grown program. So top to bottom, big to small, we all really need to stay unified. And the one thing I would say is a really important thing to keep in mind is agriculture cannot be divided.
Right.
We cannot put ourselves into categories of, you can't talk about big food versus small food. You can't talk about, and you can get into an organic discussion versus,
GMO, non-GMO, whatever, however you want to break it down.
We cannot divide ourselves in agriculture and say, there are definitely markets for lots of different things, and go for it. Whatever market you want to be in, go for that market. But
don't start working against each other.
Yeah, don't work on each other. If we work on each other, we're going to kill ourselves. Right. And so we're less than 2% of the population. We can't be divided. So that's one thing that I also preach pretty hard is don't define things. When you start talking about,
don't look at each other as competition or
look at so much as neighbors. Yeah. And I look at a grain farm that's farming several thousand acres in Indiana. If they wanted to start something different, if they wanted to be able to raise specialty product to sell at a local market. It's not in place of soybean and corn acres. We've got, it's in addition to. So we're not saying we're doing this instead of this. We're doing this in addition. Most things that we do growth-wise are just add-ons to what we're already doing. We're not going to go backward in corn and soybean production because we've accepted that we need to do more diversified crop production. I am really, really excited about diversification of what we do in agriculture. More and more and more diversification. And again, it's not because we're replacing what we've been doing. It's just in addition. I'd love on our farm to, and it'll get down to people. You need somebody, if somebody's got a passion to grow strawberries.
There it is.
Then grow strawberries and do it in addition to, and it's not in competition. It's in addition to.
Right.
Some of the things that we get a lot of course, you're in and around ag more than anyone in this room even. The biggest concerns, biggest holdbacks, biggest things that I guess in the near future and stuff like that, is there things that will get brought up to you the most?
It probably is a little bit of what we're talking about as far as just the arguments about the way something should be done or not done. So it's how we do it. That's one thing that gets brought up a lot. Access to capital, when you think about how do you incentivize growth, like how do you, and that's one thing that's frankly been missing in Indiana is when we think about economic development and the amount of incentives that have been offered for manufacturing and for different things like that. It's usually really big dollars, and it usually has a lot to do with how many jobs you're going to add and what those wages are. And agriculture doesn't normally fit into that. Even though a smaller business, like say this, when you think about Experience Ag being in Greensburg, Indiana, you make a big economic impact to this local community, even though on a scale compared to many things, it's wouldn't be as big
compared
enough to get
Honda.
Yeah, and so how do you incentivize that? And I've really come to the conclusion that the government dollars don't matter so much. It's how do you encourage, how do you knock down barriers, how do you make something available through relationships, through working together, through that's what really counts. And yes, if the government can throw some grant dollars at something to help you get to that next step quicker, something that you're probably going to get to anyway in 10 years, but if you can do it in 2 years because you've got a little extra boost and it just sets you on a path. If you can pick out those businesses that just need a little extra help to get something started, one piece of equipment that would make the difference. I was in a creamery earlier this week, Tulip Tree Creamery, and they got a dairy business builder grant for $80,000 that bought this machine that cuts their cheese, wheels into pieces, and it weighs them specifically, and it was just this efficiency thing that they were all doing by hand. Mm-hmm. And that one piece of equipment, just really propelled them into the next level. But $80,000 was a lot of money for them to invest. So this grant, they could have afforded the $40,000 version. Right. They could have done that on their own. But the $80,000 was so much better.
Right.
And that's where, to me, government dollars make sense. Help them get to that next level and then let them go. They may never need another grant again.
Right.
Because, and so, I love stories like that. But as far as access to capital, how do we help people, even like you, Andrew, when you think about when you were trying to get started, how could the state of Indiana made it easier for you somehow? And I love like beginning farmer tax credits and things like that. There's things that we need to be doing to encourage young people to get involved in agriculture.
Oh, I agree.
I think encouraging the education of it too, like educating on the programs, but just comes back and falls onto individuals interested, not interested, whatever, somewhat. But sometimes you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And if you don't hear anything about it, you don't know. Right. And you're grown, we're talking about that. Somebody may actually look that up here.
Right, absolutely.
Right? Yeah. That may not have heard anything about it. But I think education and awareness within the city or within this state of agriculture is a huge barrier we fight for always.
Yep.
So modern farming versus what we've grown up around, where do you see modern farming going in the future? Do you see more technology?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think more technology for sure. We're going to, we're watching robotics sprayers now, and you guys are right in the middle of all this. So lots of technology is just going to keep expanding and expanding. Our sprayers have gotten, I haven't even, being away from the farm, you kind of miss out on some of the details.
Yeah.
we've evidently got cameras on the back of our spray booms now. And I don't know if you guys know about this or not. So maybe you do. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm talking about the competition. I don't know. This could be inappropriate in this room, but I'm like, what are we doing? Well, you're actually watching to see how much coverage, how good the coverage is of what we're spraying on the weeds. Are we really getting, and do we need to speed up, slow down, change the pressure? You know, and so to me, that's something that, again, being away from the farm, I haven't been in on the details of those conversations, but I think, wow, we're actually watching the coverage with a camera and then being able to adjust in real time how we do that. And
unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah, you know, it's just a great story. I think, I don't know, maybe it's the dumbest purchase they ever made, and I'll be mad at them, but I think it's probably good.
But it does relate back to the impressiveness to someone realize that I need to incorporate the ability of that camera and what it can see compared to, well, I think I'm doing a good job at, as you drive 16 mile an hour across the field.
Yeah.
It's impressive that somebody connected those dots, and now that's making a difference somewhere too.
Well, and AI, of course, is playing a role in everything we do, whether you like it or not. And there's lots of it that just kind of scares me to death.
It's impressive because it can do, you know, writing code and how we can accelerate our ag, you know, and stuff like that. It can do 100x what one guy typing code can do.
Yeah, right.
It's really impressive.
Unbelievable.
Misused, it's scary. I'll agree with you 100%.
Oh yeah. But it gets back, it gets back to people and their desire to do something. And again, it's those opportunities. If you're willing to look into technology and how that can help you get something started, and even if it's not it's probably going to be hard work and sweat that gets it started. Right. And then at some point, though, wherever you can incorporate that technology, Fisher Farms is a great example down in southern Indiana, Jasper, Du Bois County. That's selling meat all over the world, really all over the country, and doing a great job of taking a local product and spreading it around the state. And part of their secret is that Mr. Fisher was a software developer in a previous life, and so he's developed an inventory system and a system for orders and billing, and everything's electronic. Yeah. So they've taken something that's this real homegrown product that they're getting out, fresh, high quality, but he's integrated that technology in. That's what makes it work, is they can get an order at,
they're efficient.
They're efficient. They can get an order at 5 o'clock, but they get it by 5 o'clock the evening the night before. They'll get you that order the next day. And this is fresh meat, not frozen. It's right off the,
impressive.
And it's impressive, but it's because of the technology that they were, that
he's been able to incorporate what he knew into something, a need that was theirs.
Yeah. But they're a great example of what the future of agriculture looks like. It's not in replacing anything like we've done in the past. It's
or anyone.
It's in addition to, and he's got 35 other producers that feed into his system.
I bet. So he's value added to lots of other folks.
Yeah.
Just crazy.
Yep.
So if you could sit down today and have a conversation with 20-year-old Don Lamb, what advice would you give him?
Oh boy. Well, enjoy every bit. Family is the most important thing. Keep your priorities straight. Don't, watch how you spend your time. If you're in agriculture, you're geared to work. You just are. And yet there is a limit to what you should do at certain times.
Those are ones around you sacrificing as well.
So I have 4 daughters, and they are still the joy of my life. I've got 3 grandkids now that I'm getting to see, come along, and it reminds me so much of what it was like when my kids were little. But making your family a priority is that time's going to go fast. It'll be gone. And thankfully, I look at my girls, they're all in their 20s, so 23 to 29, and our family is still very, very close as friends. They all live somewhat close, and we get together and we really have fun together as a family. But that's because, so as far as did I do it enough? No, I would still go back and spend more time with my family if I had to do it over again.
But the time away from them has given your whole family the ability to be where you are today, though, I'm guessing.
Yeah. And so, that's exactly right. I wouldn't, it sounds trite, I wouldn't hardly change a thing. I mean, I've just been able to live a really great life, and it's not because of any particular skill or success. It's just God's blessed blessed our family to be able to have really just a joyful life because we've got to do what we love to do.
Right.
And now, really, I can feel this season of life. There's seasons of life. There's a season in front of me right now that I'm making the most of, and I enjoy it. And then there will come another season, and I'm looking forward to that one too.
Right.
Don't ever, I look forward to every season. And that comes from my dad. My dad says they're all good. Every year is good. He's 87 years old, and he'd tell you today, one of it, it's still great.
He's just in another season.
In another season.
Looking for the next.
So,
well, Don, thanks again for coming down and being a part of this. I mean, we really appreciate it. Really appreciate what you do for the state of Indiana for agriculture, and it's just a real inspiring story.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate being here. I appreciate what you guys do.
Absolutely, loved and enjoyed getting to know you and stuff like that. But thank you all for enjoying and joining us on another episode of Barn Table Talks. We look forward to another future episode.
Thank you.